Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Whatever the I Want podcast, where I, your host, Gabby, gets to talk about whatever the I want. And today's episode is closing out the year of 2025. So this episode is entirely dedicated to what's happened throughout the year. So actually, before starting this episode, I decided to open up my journal. I was like, let me see if I have any journal entries from January, right? The start of the year. Listen to this. January 1st, 2025, 11:05 a.m. My wildest dreams consist of traveling the world, doing van life, creating, writing, spreading love, having fun, and just exploring. I want to explore myself in the world. I want to sing, dance. I want to get paid to be creative. I want being me to be a full-time job. I want things to flow to me with ease. I want to laugh more, dance more, sing more. I want to play instruments. I want to surprise myself. I want to be so confident in myself, no one can knock me down. I want to trust my gut, trust my intuition, and create more than I ever have before. I want to pour into myself. I want to experience the world, try new things, and just live. I want to be present and not worry or stress. I want to be surrounded by love, tranquility, and peace. I want to explore who I am and fall in love with myself each and every day. And then listen to this journal entry from January 2nd. So January 2nd, 2025, 9:44 a.m. I am alive, I am awake, and I am blessed. My ex and I, we're going to redact their name, read last night before bed. I love a slow night. We weren't able to fall asleep quickly, but I had song ideas coming into my head. I think being a songwriter may be a calling of mine. Time to learn to play an instrument. And I don't know why it's making me so emotional. I think it's because this year is the year I finally allowed for myself to acknowledge my dreams, to acknowledge what it is I've always wanted to do. I think, and they talk about this during manifestation, it actually takes more out of you to suppress the things that you want and to suppress like your childhood or things that are holding you back. It takes more energy to actually suppress those things than it does to actually listen to them. And I think this year I finally feel free. I feel like a kid again. Like I feel like the world is my oyster. I feel like I have so much potential and so much life left to live. I think things were really put into perspective this year because I think we often believe that we have a lot of time when in reality, if you're lucky, you get to live to be 70, 80, 90, potentially 100, but you're really not know if tomorrow is promised. And so that's why you have to seize the day. You have to make the most of the day. And so what I've really focused on doing is trying to do the best for myself each and every day. And of course, that doesn't look like perfection, right? Like there's times where I play the piano and I get frustrated and I'm like, okay, I'm done for the day. Or there's times where I'm like, wait, actually, let me just take a little break. I'll come back and I think I'll be able to get this. I think I'm kind of like trying too hard. I think I'm trying too hard to get this right. So there's like pressure. So that's why I'm not doing well. It's because I'm just like so focused on wanting to be better versus like just allowing the moment to just be. And I think that that's what I've done a really good job at this year is trying to just like relieve the pressure of things. So it's like, yeah, I know I have dreams of releasing music and, you know, I do write songs almost every day or at least poems or like I'm writing in some capacity. And I know that I don't share them all with the world, but that's not to say that my time is not coming for me to share those things. And I was looking back at my bingo card because this was the first holiday season I spent without my family. This might be my first Christmas and first New Year. I know for sure it was my first Christmas. This will be my second New Year's without my family, because my first one was last year. I'm wondering if in college, I think in college I always spent it with them. So looking at my bingo card from 2025, I didn't complete everything on it, but I did do quite a bit of things. So one thing that I did was start a podcast. I taught my cat Miko a trick. I finished The Artist's Way. I did a thrift flip, and I was hesitant about crossing that off because I was like, I didn't do enough, right? The thrift flip didn't look like what I wanted it to look like. I have like a half finished bag that I started sewing, made from recycled jeans, right? Like I upcycled them. Another thing, which that's not why I crossed it off. I crossed it off because what I made for my cousin Jenny for her baby shower was a blanket, and some of the materials were thrifted, which I washed, and then I, sewed all the things. One of them that I crossed off is learn how to play an instrument. I was practicing the ukulele at some points this year, and I feel like, the piano, I'm learning to play. Am I an expert at it? No. But am I working on that? Yeah, I am. I visited Wisconsin, which I got to do with my mom and my sister. I got to write more poetry. I did create more and consume less. I did take self-portraits. It didn't look like what I wanted it to, but I did do that. I was fully expecting for it to be something entirely different. I think for me, it's like a lot of my goals were like really big, and I just think sometimes it just looks like you taking that first step. And I did practice more French. And I mean, low-key, I can cross off some of these too. Write and record a song. I have done that. Write and record a song in Spanish. I have done that. They're not things that I'm ready to share with the world, nor do I feel like they're finished products, but they actually are things that I did do. I did also read quite a bit this year. I hit a reading funk at some point. I just think, in The Artist's Way, they talk about like with reading, people often use it as an escape, right? Like to avoid your task, similar to like anything else in life. Don't mind me. I decided to make tea. I made a hot matcha latte this morning. It was my first time making a hot matcha. Now I have some peppermint tea in my Ted Lasso cup with some honey. So if you do have a water or anything with you, cheers to 2025. I think this year has taught me a lot about myself. It's honestly crazy to think that I'm 28, I don't say that at all as like, oh, I'm so old or anything. I actually feel the exact opposite. Recently with work, a lot of people tell me that they think I'm like 19, 20, 21. I think the oldest I've gotten, it was like 25. And I have realized that, especially now working retail and, having worked a normal job, like when I was working at Starbucks, I realized how much people like to complain, specifically older people. They like to complain about the weather, their kids, their body, pain that they're feeling, medications, like whatever you can think of, they're probably complaining about it. And that's almost like a stereotype that you have with older people, is that like, oh, they like to complain. And one thing that I've started to realize why I feel like my energy feels younger is because I don't feel like I complain as much as I used to. It was very easy to complain about things in general. I remember I was with my friend Andrew, and he actually reminds me of this story because it's something that like is in my memory, but he brings it up. We were doing a photo shoot in Miami on the beach, and the sun was coming up. And I said, "Oh, Andrew, look, the sunrise is so pretty." And he was like, "Yeah, I've seen better though." And I responded by saying, "Okay, you've seen better. That doesn't take away the beauty from this one." And I think that goes to show the impact that you don't realize that you have, the words that you say and how they can affect somebody. But I love that that's a memory that he has of me. And so I think once I really started to realize that the impact you make in the world is much bigger than you believe, that's when a lot of things started to change. Another example, one of my coworkers recently texted me. She's like, hey, are you busy? And I was like, I'm on the phone, but what's up? She's telling me about a breakup she's going through. And, you know, she's 19, she thinks she's 18, young, right? There's a gap between us. And she's just like venting to me about what's happening in her life. And it really put things into perspective for me in that she feels comfortable and safe to talk to me about these things. And that's the way that I show up in the world for people, right? Is that I'm an ear, I'm actively listening, I'm being present. And I wasn't always like that, right? There's times where you'll be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and you're like, I've heard this story a million times, but I'll still like sit there and try to listen to it. Or I'll try to like bring myself back to the moment of like, let me actively pay attention to what this person's saying. But these are things that I actively work on because I know the ways in which I want to show up for people. I think this year I learned how to be much calmer. I think I learned how to go with the flow more. And I think it's a combination of things. So some of it is because I've like dived into manifestation. And a big part of that is like, yes, it's scripting, it's, you know, writing things down, it's visualizing, it's meditating. But a lot of it is shutting out what people say. A lot of it is being able to turn off the music, turn off the videos, turn off the movies, turn off the noise to really see what it is that your heart is saying. Another thing that I do is I listen to subliminals a lot. And for those who don't know, subliminals are essentially affirmations put at a very low volume. That way it can penetrate your mind and your subconscious essentially to rewire your brain. So this year I've like actively worked on rewiring my brain, like, you know, really trying not to grab my phone in the morning, which today I did grab my phone this morning and I noticed a big difference of me wanting to keep going on my phone. Like by 11, I was like, I had already finished all my scrolling for the day. Like I'd already hit my 45 minutes. And I'm like, bro, it's 11 o'clock. Like, what am I going to do for the rest of today? I did practice the piano. I think a big component of it is like giving myself the space to have days where I just like can entirely rest. Like yesterday, I didn't practice the piano at all. And I smoked, I ordered some Indian food, and I watched a movie. And the movie was called, I believe it was called All of Us. And it had Brett Goldstein in it. I love him. If you don't know who he is a character in Ted Lasso. He plays Roy Kent. So handsome. I mean, throughout the movie, I'm just like, this man is stunning. Like, he is like everything to me. Like, he's just, that is a man right there. And I realized like, if there's one thing that is my type, it is some olive skin and some dark hair, you know? And just like a big nose. Don't ask me why that is my type, but I will tell you right now, like, and if you throw on some tattoos, yeah, you have me. A beard? Yes, please. So anywho, the movie it's one of those movies like 500 Days of Summer where it's like not necessarily a happy ending. And I was like writing down so many notes. Like, I don't normally like smoke and rot, but I think most people, whenever you smoke, you are a little bit more like introspective. And so I take a lot of notes because I'll be like watching something and it'll trigger something in me. And I'm like, oh my God, this. So I was writing notes and I started thinking about how like in this movie, things are not necessarily a fairy tale, right? But I, at the very least, do deserve my fairy tale. I deserve to be with somebody who does make my life easier, who does make things fun, and who does make things lighter for me. I'm trying to find, you don't want to know how many notes I have. It's kind of crazy. I also realized how you're not meant to settle in life. That life, a lot of people say like, well, that's how life is, right? Like, that's just the way things go. Like, you don't get to end up with the love of your life. You don't get to, have the family that you expected. You don't get the things that you want. And I don't agree with that anymore. I do think that sometimes you don't get what you want, but that's because something better comes into play. Not that you get something worse. And I started to realize like, well, why can't my life be a movie? Right? Like, I don't want my life to look boring. My life has been anything but boring. I feel like it could be a movie at this point. I've had breakups and I've moved and I've done things that are not predictable. But why would you do the predictable? It doesn't make your life interesting by doing the predictable things. What makes your life interesting is by doing the things that are wild and crazy, And if you're going to have to look back and watch your life, right, play out, do you want to just sit there and not have any highs or any lows or any twists and turns? That's what makes a good plot, right? Is the character development. And by you staying within your comfort zone, you're not building anything. You're not developing or growing as a person. You're not evolving. You're just staying right here. And nobody wants to even like, let's look at like math. Like, you don't want to look at like a graph that's just, or like a line that's just straight. Like, what people are excited to see are, a graph rising and then like, oh, it went down. Why did it go down? Like, I can't explain it. And then like it goes back up and it goes down and maybe it plummets and then maybe it goes shooting right back up, like stocks, or, or even like think about a landscape, like yeah, the desert is interesting, but what makes a landscape more interesting are like the valleys, the peaks of the mountain, that's what makes things more interesting. Sorry to all my desert lovers. I'm not saying deserts are boring. I'm just saying that that's what like life is. Life is the ups and the downs. It is everything in between. And I think that this year I've kind of like almost had like a more in-depth spiritual awakening. And I have also become the most confident version of myself. I don't know how to explain it. But I think that, yes, the subliminals and all those things have made a huge impact in my life, right? Like, I'm listening to things as soon as I wake up of saying like I'm strong, I am worthy, I get to have everything I want in this life. And, I'm allowing for my mind to absorb positive thoughts through a lot of the day. But I also think a lot of it is by doing the shadow work, by talking to my friends about things that are dark, that are deep, that are personal, and just allowing that to just like flow out of you. And I also started to realize that like, people have core memories, right? And that's like a story that you might have heard like your parents say like 1,000 times. And maybe it only ever happened once. Like, I would hear my ex talk about like one or two very specific scenarios that happened. Same thing with me, but those core memories, the reason why they keep coming up is because they impacted your brain. They impacted you as a person. And that's why you might hear somebody share a story so many times. Like maybe you, maybe your parents only ever spanked you once, right? But you have that memory of like, oh, well, my parents spanked me, and my brother will say things like, oh my gosh, Gaby, like things, you're so exaggerative. Like things weren't that bad. And I got spanked more than once, like, let's be real. But just an example. So I started to realize that with these core memories and allowing them to come up, because you should, talking about these things allows for them to become easier. Somebody was recently talking to me about something that had happened in their past. And it was my boss. He was talking to me about his mom passing away. And he essentially apologized for bringing it up. And I told him, like, there's no reason to apologize about any of it, because that's just how grief is. Grief comes up randomly and it comes in waves, and there's no right or wrong way to handle it. And that's how you keep people alive, right? It's by talking about things. And so I just feel like so much has happened lately. So also, like, since it is the holiday season, I have been noticing that, like, I have been missing my ex. And although I still entirely stand by my decision that, like, the past couple days were difficult, it's grief, right? Grief comes in waves. It comes when you least expect it. But at the same time, you can't allow for grief or hurt or pain or anything to hold you back from moving forward. And it's hard, right? Because you want to keep these people alive, especially, I think it's tough to grieve somebody who's still alive, right? But I saw this TikTok of somebody saying that, like, the reason why you love so deep, right, with every relationship, because I do agree with that. I feel like with every relationship, I've just learned to love somebody even deeper, and I've showed even more parts of myself and who I am. And it's because I've been able to love so deeply, right? Like, I've hit this well of love that I feel like there's not more to give, right? Like, that's as deep as it can go. But it's not until you meet somebody else, right, who loves you in a healthier way, who loves you maybe in a different way as well, where you can feel the well dig deeper. And so if you are experiencing any loss in any capacity, just know that well, you think only can go so far, but it can go deeper. You just have to be patient and wait for that moment. You know, I've loved and I thought I was never going to love again. I know that many people can relate to that. I feel like relationships are one of the easiest things to relate to. And guess what happened? You loved again. And you might have loved a little differently. And maybe you took things from your partner that you loved, and I'm taking them onto my next relationship. And maybe I kept the attributes that I loved and I let go of the ones that I didn't love so much, whether it be from them or from me. And what a beautiful thing that is. Love in general. Love from your mother, from your father, from your family, from your friends. I see so many couples, and like, body language really is everything. I see couples and you'll see them laughing or like looking intently at each other. And my friend Christian and I, we asked a lot whenever we're out if we're dating. And I really understood why recently, because I was like, whenever him and I are talking to each other, like, we're actively listening, you know, like we're making eye contact. I'm, you know, looking at him, and we might not be holding hands or even be like remotely like close to each other, you know, because he's not one that likes affection. Like, we don't really hug or anything, but it's because our body language shows that we are intently in the conversation, you know, that we're actively listening to the other. And I think that it's so important to trust your gut when it comes to anything in life, and to listen to those cues that you might not realize exist. So it could be, for example, body language, the way that somebody approaches you, the way that somebody talks to you, the way that somebody shows up for you. Those are cues to let you know, oh, this person actually really cares and listens to what I'm saying. Oh, this person is just using me for my body. This person, you know, seems to only call me whenever something's wrong with them. Like, I have some friends who talk about that. Like, they have friends who only reach out to talk about their own problems, but don't ask them, how are you? What's going on with you? And so it was interesting because one of my friends was like, you know that TikTok audio that goes like, well, I'm definitely your best friend. And it's interesting because it's like, yeah, there's people that are like that will absorb and use your energy and not really care or ask you, how are you? But it's just like a me, I take. And you're always going to give. And why would my brain think otherwise when all that you've shown me up until this point is that you're going to keep giving? And goes back to like my previous relationship. It was from a TikTok that I watched, and it was like, well, why would that man expect any better from you when you've always showed that like when you leave, you come back, or that you're going to just tolerate their behavior? And I think for me, what was so hard and why like grief has been so different in this relationship is because this is somebody that I really felt like I was growing with at some points. And I really felt like we were building something. But like I mentioned in last week's episode, we reached a point where like I just kept growing and he just stayed the same. And growth, I get it. It's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to grow and to be like, actually, these are attributes that aren't serving me. Maybe I am the problem. Like that is a hard thing to come to terms with. But I think that it's been the best thing for me is to have given myself the space to grieve and process all these previous versions of me that I don't want to exist any longer. And I do think a big part of all of this is my Saturn return. So if you believe in astrology, like your Saturn return comes around your 29th year of life. I think it's between 28 to like 30, 31. Essentially, it comes back around Saturn and it just like turns your world upside down. And you're meant to use that time to grow and essentially come back to who you were, to your true self. And I believe that your true self is who you were as a child, innocent and full of life and joy and creativity and full of fun. And you didn't care what people said and you weren't in your head as much, right? You were just a kid existing, laughing, having fun. And I feel like now I've given myself the space to be a kid again, to allow for life to be fun, even whenever you have a flat tire, even whenever you have to stay a little late at work. I just will take a deep breath and I'm like, I guess God just wants me here a little longer. And my sister-in-law and I were actually recently talking about this because, funny enough, her brother, who was becoming a priest, ended up marrying a woman who used to be a nun. And there's actually like I believe it's over 10 years, I believe, the age gap. For sure. Yeah, it's over 10 years, their age gap. And, the wife is in her 40s and they're like, oh, she looks so good for age, which she does. She looks fantastic. And my sister-in-law was like, well, that's what happens whenever you just trust God. You're not worried. You're not stressed. I've started to realize that the more that you're kind of like sucked into the real world, the more people become stressed, the more that they have wrinkles because they're constantly worrying, right? That might cause you to have more grays. And I'm not sitting here and saying like aging isn't a part of life, right? It is. I have some grays that I know were caused from stress, like maybe one of them is a genetic one, but the other one I know for sure my ex caused me, my most recent ex. I'm like, this one was you. And I know that, like, I know it in my soul, like this one, that was you. But I think that the more I've started to realize, like, even whenever I'm like driving or something, I'll realize like if I have tension in my forehead, I'm like, why am I so stressed right now? Or like, take a deep breath. I've really noticed that like whenever I started to realize like that anxiety's in my body and I'm able to recognize it very quickly, I'm like, how can I calm myself down? We got to calm ourselves down. We got to regulate our nervous system. How do we do that? We got to take a deep breath. Let me just shake it out. Sometimes I'll get out of work and I'm just like, I have been standing for like 8 hours and I'm just talking to people and I've been running back and forth, finding clothes and doing this. And I'm just like, I just got to shake it out, and I'll just shake it out. I'll put like an album on and I'll just like go about my day, or or I'll stretch, or I'll go to the gym, which I haven't been to the gym in over a week with the wedding and I started feeling sick at some point. So it's been interesting to kind of just see how the end of this year has just really looked like rest. You want to come up here? Come here. My cat's just rubbing his head on everything, just marking his territory, just cat things. So I've really started to realize how much stress can affect the body. And I'm reading an audiobook, or I guess listening to an audiobook. It's called What Happened to You by Oprah. And I also feel like that book put a lot of things into perspective for me. I'm not done listening to it. I actually started it probably sometime around the summer-ish, August maybe. And it's fascinating to see what the brain absorbs and how these things stay with you, down to smells, down to sounds. And I think whenever you really start to realize what triggers you and how you react when you're being triggered, it's a game changer. And so this year has really been filled with a lot of growth, a lot of letting go, a lot of being okay with not being okay, and learning to process things and giving myself the space to do all of that. So yeah, 2025 ended up being a year that was exactly what I needed. And I'm very, very happy with how things have ended up. And I know it's not ideal, right? But I'm very proud of myself. I feel like I've lived so many lifetimes in this year, and time isn't real. You know, it really isn't. It's all just made up. And once I started to put things into perspective of like, time is made up, but all I can do is seize the moment now. And what can I do to be better? And what can I do to get one day, one step at a time closer to my dreams? I feel like life really changed for me. So I really hope that that inspires you to seize the moment and to grab life by the balls and to say like, come on, giddy up. Like we're gonna make this what I want for it to be, because ultimately I am responsible for my life. Like, yeah, my parents birthed me and they had to raise me. Or shall I say, they were lucky enough to raise me, right? Period. Because my parents are very lucky to have me. I definitely think that I am a fantastic addition to my family. So my parents were lucky enough to, I'm going to get emotional. We're lucky enough to have me, and I'm very fortunate to have had them. And although no one in this life is perfect, once you realize that you have to take accountability for yourself and for everything, it doesn't matter what people did to you. You have to take accountability for how it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Your life will change. You just have to learn to be the one changing it. Like, okay, I can't change the past, but what can I change now? And you have to be the change. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Like, yeah. If I want the world to change, I got to change too. So yeah, 2025 was a year for the books. I'm very happy with how this year was. It was painful in a lot of ways, but it was also the most rewarding year that I've had thus far. And so I'm very excited to see what 2026 has in store. I started vision boarding earlier today and I journaled. I haven't journaled in a while. So that's what I'm going to spend the rest of the night doing. It was a rainy day here in Chicago, but I feel like sometimes we have to take these rainy days and make the most of them. And so that's what I decided to do by filming today's episode. Like, the show must go on, right? So we're making the show go on, and I'm learning Wake Me Up by Ed Sheeran on the piano. And I have gotten a little frustrated. I've been trying to learn this for a while, and my voice isn't exactly how I want it to be right now because I've been sick and I had lost it a little bit at the wedding. And so, yeah, my voice isn't still 100%. It feels like maybe at a 75, but I definitely think in the upcoming days it's going to get there. So maybe very soon you'll be hearing a cover of Wake Me Up by Ed Sheeran by me. So that's pretty cool. And I just look forward to see what 2026 has in store for me. I even messaged somebody today about a beat, because it's one thing that I have been kind of procrastinating on, is releasing an album. That's something I really want to do. And 2026 is the year that it's going to happen. And so how do I start, right? So I messaged somebody, and, you know, we're in the works of having a beat getting produced. And I remember for a long time, people told me, like, don't say your dreams out loud. And like, yeah, you can keep dreams close to you. I think that's a great thing to do, right? Especially like, you know, I do have some other secret projects that I'm working on that you don't know about yet. But I also think it is cool to say your dreams out loud. And if anything, it low-key holds you more accountable, because it's like, hey girl, you said on your podcast that you were going to be releasing a project, but you didn't do that. And there's plenty of things that I've said I was going to do that I did not do, or maybe I have done, but I've just never released it. So yeah, I think now I'm learning, like, take it all, take the good, the bad, and the ugly, and like, we'll work it out from there. Because at the end of the day, I'm on a floating rock, and like, who cares? I only have one life to live. I got a message yesterday. My cousin called me brave. I got so emotional hearing that. And, you know, I told her, like, well, if I've only got one shot on this floating rock, I'm gonna take it. And I think that we should all do that. You have one shot on this floating rock. And yeah, I believe in reincarnation, but you know what? This very moment, I only have one shot in this body, in this life. And I don't know if I'm going to reincarnate as the same person, but I just know that I got to take it. I got to take it, and I got to make the most of it, because I don't even know if I'm promised next week. And that's also one thing that helps me with stress, is like, is this something I need to worry about right now? Because I used to spiral so bad thinking about what's going to happen a month from now. And then, you know, and then what about this? And how am I going to do that? And it's like, bro, I don't even know if I'm going to have a minute from now. Like, I could literally die mid-sentence. Knock on wood. I don't have any wood. But, you know, it's possible. So it's like, yeah, you just have to like take advantage of the moment that you have, because you're literally not promised any other moment besides right now. So with that being said, congratulations, you survived 2025. And yeah, it's time to vision board for 2026, and, you know, share some goals that you have. I want to hear in the comments, what is something that you learned in 2025, and what is something that you want to accomplish in 2026? Hope you all have a wonderful day, and Happy New Year's, everyone.